6, 7 at the office. So I end up buying a new one every time I need to use it.
Is 2:04. We are here for the IUPA negotiations. My name is John McKinney, Finance Director.
I am April Addison. I'm the interim HR director.
Manny Marino, Chief of Police. Chris Raines, IUPA Vice President.
Jared Alvasados, President of IUPA.
Brian Lambert, Attorney, IUPA.
Kyle Totten, Business Agent, IUPA.
Carly Neat, Assistant Key Attorney, Board
I attended the Police Pension Board meeting 2 weeks ago. At the Pension Board meeting, it was the issue of line of duty death was brought up. There were some questions within the meeting. Warren knew that I had been in discussion with him on a couple of these items. And so I reiterated right from an email from the Police Pension Board attorney that line of duty death was a bargained item. As a result, we had a quick conversation, and Warren sent it to Jared, seeing that right now retirement is a open article, and we have agreed to consider it as part of these negotiations. There was a couple of, there were 2 different emails that were sent out to us from the Police Pension Board, 2 proposed ordinances. After reviewing those ordinances in discussion with the City Attorney's Office, we have come up with this proposed ordinance that I sent to Jared earlier this week for review that more closely aligns with the FRS line of duty benefit. Obviously, we need to mirror something, and that was by far, in the city's view, the best option that is fair, I believe, to both parties, the city and our membership. So that's where we are at this point, because what was provided to us, both the original and the amended, is just not acceptable in the current form. Hence why we came up with this.
What was unacceptable about it?
Mostly the item regarding beneficiary.
Yeah,
It was,
what regard? I'm really asking what regard.
Open-ended.
It was open-ended.
Yes, sir. So, you could have a, and please stop me if I'm, but, you could, the proposal was, you could have a beneficiary that's 16 years old, and it was the life of that individual. So that was just, that's not, how's that fiscally responsible? And you could definitely, right now, with what was provided, that has a cost annually of $51,000. So we know that, under this ordinance, we would still need to have an impact study done, but it would probably be far less than $51,000 a year.
Okay.
Increased cost in, the city's required annual contribution.
Okay, yeah, I wanted clarification.
Not worse.
And spouse is going to include, marriages from other states. They just passed that Protection of Marriage Act. It's going to include all those, right? Definition.
We can go through it right here if you want. If we go to, this would be the proposed ordinance. So the benefits payable in the event of a participant killed in the line of duty, the surviving spouse of any participant killed in the line of duty may, in lieu of the benefits provided in section 54-132, elect to receive a monthly pension equal to 100% of the monthly salary being received by the participant at the time of death for the rest of the surviving spouse's lifetime. For the purpose of this section, killed in the line of duty means a death that arises out of and in the actual performance of a duty required by the participant's employment as a city police officer and occurs during regularly scheduled working hours or irregular working hours as required by the city. The city will require sufficient documentation to determine whether a death meets these criteria. B, if the surviving spouse of a participant killed in the line of duty dies, the monthly payment that would have been payable to such surviving spouse, had such surviving spouse lived, shall be divided equally among all the participants' children who are under 18 years of age until each child's 18th birthday or until the 25th birthday of any child who is enrolled as a full-time student and paid for the use and benefit of each child. And C, if a participant killed in the line of duty leaves no surviving spouse but is survived by a child or children under 18 years of age, the benefit provided by subsection A, normally payable to a surviving spouse, shall be divided equally among all the participants' children who are under 18 years of age until each child's 18th birthday or until the 25th birthday of any child who is enrolled as a full-time student and paid for the use and benefit of each eligible child. So, I think that, the line of duty death, that, is, again, following FRS, they have a very detailed section in there within their requirement. I did forward that to Jared as well. And this also mirrors FRS in terms of the surviving spouse beneficiary. So again, we've got a very good template to follow that, matches the number one law enforcement agency, that covers the majority of law enforcement officers in the state of Florida.
So under this, if someone, an officer at the dying line of duty, and say they're engaged, their fiance wouldn't receive anything, and then correct?
Yes, sir.
The city's comfortable with that? The city's comfortable with that? Because I just want to know, because the 4 people we just hired, they're all single, they're young kids. I need to make sure they understand that they get nothing, that there's no one to give their money to, because they can't, even though we have a thing in our city that says who is your death beneficiaries, I think they need to be properly informed that no one actually gets anything. And in fact, my spouse, I consider my spouse, my 5-year girlfriend, who I've yet to be married to, she gets nothing. And the city's completely comfortable with that idea that she gets nothing, even though she's been with me for 5 years. That word to me is just, that's very unreasonable. That cuts out, who are you trying to target? Who are you trying to hire? Who are you trying to hire? Or are we going to put a thing up that says, hey, are we going to clarify this information for the people we're recruiting from the academy? These 21-year-old guys getting out of the military who are thinking like, hey, I'm going to get compensated. I'm going to be protected. My family's going to have something. For the first 6 years of my career, almost 7, my parents were my beneficiaries because I didn't have anyone to leave my money to if I died at work. So they would have got nothing under this one, and my current girlfriend would get nothing. And what if people are just not wanting to be married? So I think that that's a very improper term to use, especially when, I understand this was costed out by the pension board. You did a study. The one that the pension board provided us has been costed out. So the city's position is, well, that just seems like too much money to us, so you're do our best to try to reduce it. Well, you're going to reduce that because I would argue, so that's 40% of your active working police officers are not married. That's a great position. My other question out of the gate is was this approved? Is this approved terminology from like a shade meeting with the city council? Is this the city council's?
No, sir. As you're aware, this isn't something we take to shade because at this time, this hasn't even been negotiated between the union. So step one is you had to bring it to our attention. Step two, we're negotiating it. Step three, then it would go to shade. So no, sir, there has been, have you?
No.
Have not discussed it with any member of council, nor have I discussed it with the city manager, to be quite frank, other than we're having a meeting today to discuss line of duty death benefit.
So you guys changed it from just beneficiary in general to spouse specifically?
I stated to you previously, we follow the state of Florida's guide under FRS. So,
I have
so
the
you're,
state of
so you're,
Florida's guide. I mean, the
so-
state of Florida's guide is what the pension board provided.
so
They have designated beneficiary.
Right. They've designated beneficiary. They don't have spouse.
So, I mean, again, this is our proposal to you, Jared. If you would like to counter it with another language, that's what this whole meeting's for.
So your main concern with making it that way is if someone was to select it as a beneficiary, like a really young child, and then they get it for their entire lifetime, correct? Just the long-term
Why not
cost of
just
that.
use the same language for children, that if they're under 18 years of age, then it'll be up to the 25, even if they're a designated beneficiary, then you cover that.
I mean, I would argue the same point of, your partner, if I don't want anything to happen to you by no means, but do you believe that if something was to happen to you unwed, do you think that, she would go and get married? And again, how long would that benefit go to that person? Would it go for, 1 year, 2 year, 5 years until marriage? I mean, the point is, being open-ended.
Well, I mean, if your spouse gets remarried, they continue to get it. So what difference does it make whether someone chooses to get married or not?
So we're open to a suggestion, and if that's,
I mean, the suggestion is what the pension board provided. That's what was openly discussed and talked about, and the pension board members, who are both city council members and police officers, that said, hey, this is the language that we feel protects everyone and gives these police officers in our city the proper coverage they need. That's the proposal. I mean, it's as simple as that. The pension board provided you what needs to be done.
Well, and you'd have no problem in making the designated beneficiaries under the age of 18 adopting the 25th birthday language.
Sure.
and for the record, I've not attended any pension board meeting that this was discussed in detail. The only thing that was brought up at the last pension board meeting was this is an item. Ms. Rosenwald made the statement, I don't understand why the city has not signed this already. And like I stated, I was in the audience. I raised my hand. Warren gave me the floor. I read the email section specifically where it stated this had to be a bargained item, and that's how we came to the table today. So there has not been any conversation, to my knowledge, with any of the four people sitting on this side of the room. And prior to that, I was called, happened to be upstairs with the former administrative services director, and this was a conversation for probably less than 3 minutes. So up until 2 weeks ago, this has not been a conversation at all with anyone sitting at this table.
So the pension board I guess I'm trying to clarify how this came to be. Pension board provides theirs. This is what we feel is appropriate. Gets to the city. Who made these changes? Who specifically orders and marching orders was, we're making these changes? Is it Matt Jones? Is it city manager? Who is it?
We just needed some clarification and some parameters as to who it would be, and it is our belief that it does mirror the Florida retirement system. I'm more than happy to, if you guys want to highlight where you believe that's inaccurate and send those over, we're happy to look at that, but it mirrors the language.
I mean, do you understand where I'm coming from, though? I mean, that's a pretty big, just that specific little change in of itself. I mean, that's a very specific problem. You know, I think that's something where the city should have caught that. And if nothing else, did the mindset should have been, hey, we need to research what the definition of spouse is and how we're gonna identify this, because if we have people who religious beliefs, maybe they don't remarry, maybe they married once, divorced, they have religious beliefs, they don't marry. And spouse in the state of Florida is a husband married to a wife. Yeah, so regardless of the terms of that person's been together, regardless of how long that couple has involved themselves, the city's going to say, thanks for playing, we're not interested. And I got to tell you that I would not want to be the recruiting guy right now, trying to figure out how to sell that idea to the officers you want here, because we're already trying to do the best we can to pull people here. And I guarantee if I tell the two people that are in our in-house that just walked through the door, hey, hurry up and get married so you get something. Just marry someone, I guess. How do you expect people to knowingly put themselves in danger for this community with the additional thought that, hey, if I die saving this homeless guy crossing the road and try to pull him out of traffic, and I get hit by a car, or I try to help this person disabled on the side of the road, I get hit by a car, or someone attacks me, it's all for nothing. Because that's the umbrella global community of police and fire rescue is, because it's a dangerous job, we're going to protect you and your family in the event you die. And this city has seen what? And I think the last line of duty death, I think it was reported in the 70s. So you're telling me that this is such apparently a happening problem that we had to eliminate a large chunk of our current employed officers from this benefit because of the possibility of this cost? I mean, I'm confused. I don't know how we're going to continue to run the city, basically, with this mindset. I mean, we're talking about a problem we have legitimately not seen until a 2021 death. And prior to that, almost 40 years back, has not been a line of duty death reported in the city. But we're going to act like we're going to be paying out massive amounts of money tomorrow because of this. I just don't. Every time that we come to the table and we try to fix something, we talked about this failure. We had all identified as a city, and I know you weren't here. The city identified this is a failure. We need to fix. Hey, we didn't notice this. Daytona Beach. Hey, we didn't notice this. We're going to fix this. We don't want this to ever happen again. So our way of fixing it is, well, we'll kind of fix it, but we're not going to fix it for a vast majority of officers. We'll just fix it for people who make sure you're married when you're here. So the pension board, I put as I should, because they're elected positions and they're trusted by the emergency services people because they're in that position, just like my members elected me to sit here and protect them. And if the pension board provided you, after going back and forth with the city, doing the study, getting all the documentation there, giving it to the city, and then the city says, not interested. Well, we're gonna put what we think, even though they did the study, they did the costs. I think $51,000 is not a lot of money at all, because you're talking about the death of a police officer. You're talking about the death of your emergency services worker. You're not talking about he broke his finger and we have to pay him 51%. That's a topic of concern in of itself. Is we can have two officers respond to a call, and we can have both officers enter the same doorway. One officer gets shot in the arm, one officer gets shot in the face. The officer gets shot in the arm who can continue to live his life, but he can't do this job anymore. He's going to get a benefit forever. The guy who's literally no longer on this earth, and his family, who no longer has his paycheck, who no longer has his resources, thanks for playing. I just, that to me that's mind blowing. That's
Yeah.
mind blowing.
Feels like having it limited to just spouse and children is too limiting. Because there's a lot of people who might be the longtime partner that they don't marry, or maybe they don't have any sort of longtime partner, but they may have other family members like parents if they're young. You got a lot of young people starting this job who still have their parents around because they're not that old either, and they're going to get nothing. And it just seems like it limits it too much. And back to your earlier statement, unless I'm reading this wrong, FRS defines beneficiary as the joint annuitant or other person. Of course, moved on me. 1 second here. Joint annuitant or other person, organization, estate, or trust designated by the member to receive the benefits, if any, which may be payable in the event of the member's death or the death of another beneficiary. So by that language, I mean, they're talking about trust or organization or anything, not just spouse or children, and that's it.
I believe that's for vested, so, when we get into this benefit, it's just different, and that's, you need the specific language for that, and that's not in that section.
Okay, but that's still for their membership, and that is from FRS, correct?
I believe that is in there, correct, and not for what we're discussing today.
But this is for all our membership. This doesn't differentiate, correct, between vested or non-vested. This is just for everyone, right? The proposal to the ordinance for us.
Yeah, so I'm on it right here. And, before you retire, so that would be line of duty. If you are actively employed with a FRS participating employer and die in the line of duty, your spouse, if you're married, will receive a monthly benefit equal to 50% of your last monthly salary, or 100% payable to his or her lifetime. Your spouse will receive this benefit regardless of your length of service, even if you name someone else as your beneficiary. If your spouse subsequently dies, or if you have no spouse, the benefit will be paid to your unmarried children until the youngest child reaches 18. The payment may be extended until the 25th birthday if the child is unmarried and enrolled as a full-time student. I saw the other things regarding, joint beneficiary, but it was regarding retirement benefits, for the, but nothing in there regarding the line of duty. So I'm not the attorney. I leave that to the attorneys in here. I couldn't see it. So I took everything that you guys provided after they provided it. I couldn't find it. So again, I know you're saying this has been discussed. I can't find where it's been discussed with, this side of the table. Maybe it was discussed previously with the chief and everyone else. I can't answer that question, but we're here at the table. We definitely understand, and I believe council will make a decision on this sooner than later. This is definitely a warranted thing. There's no doubt at all that we want to do something for this. It's just that, we want to mirror it. If you don't think that we're mirroring it properly, show it to us. I will be more than happy to sit down with Carly and Matt and make adjustments so that we can get this sooner than later to the city council for consideration. No one wants to put this off.
And the section you're relying on the FRS Namira would be the high risk death benefits and the line of duty,
Yes, sir.
as opposed to the retirement,
Yes, sir.
vesting or pre-vesting.
Yep. I've looked at 121 and 185 of the Florida statutes. I can't find anything that y'all are stating, and that's just doing my own research. Again, I'm not an expert of Florida statute. I can Google just like everyone else. So,
Well, yeah, I'm just asking, really, I'm asking this be for clarification that I'm on the same page and understanding this is coming from the line of duty death benefits for high-risk retirement service in the state system is what you're hearing.
Correct.
Okay.
Like I mentioned, we're happy to look at whatever you send over, and if we really believe something, should be in place, that's why we're trying to negotiate.
Well, that was in their language. Yeah. That was part of the language too. That's why I'm having a, I have a hard time questioning language about something that I'm not a part of. I defer to the pension board when I ask pension board questions. I don't make pension board answers. And when the pension board chairman is telling me that this is the language that was studied, this was the language that went back and forth with the city, and this was the language that was being studied and put in to agree upon, I am not going to sit there and say, well, I don't, well, this apparently wasn't studied. I wasn't there. But somehow it got back and forth. The language got here. The language got here from the pension board, going to the city, going back to the pension board, so somehow it got there. So I'm confused on how that transpired, where even though this is apparently agreed upon and was studied for the purposes of this language, but then we decided that we're going to change it anyways. So why did you spend the money on the actuary impact study if you weren't going to agree on the language?
we didn't, Jared. This isn't us. I've said this countless times. I cannot direct, nor anyone at this table can direct a pension board to do anything. They are a separate entity, basically, of the city.
Mm-hmm.
The plan sponsor is the city, but they are a separate legal board. I cannot tell them how to pay bills. I cannot tell them what investment advisor to use, actuary advisor to use, nor any member of council. That is 100% the pension board. So at some point in time at a meeting in the past, the police pension board, this was a discussion item. The pension board directed Mr. Little to go out and do this impact statement. It was received by Ms. Rosenbaum at 3:51 on June 13, 22. I can't tell you when it was discussed at a pension board meeting. The first police pension board meeting I went to was 2 weeks ago since I've been here. So it could have been discussed in July, it could have been discussed in August, and I am relaying to you that as far as I could find, I personally saw it for the first time when it was provided to me by Warren on November 16th.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I agreed to get this sooner than later, this meeting.
Yeah, and I agree. That was definitely
So Miss Donnelly, other than, sometime in August, because the email was received August 5th, which had this email attached to, I'm sorry, the ordinance with Chad Little's thing. That was the first time I knew anything about it. And again, we went back and it specifically said in that email that it had to be, and it's from the police pension attorney, had to be a negotiated item, and no one up until, November, early November was this even brought up. Because that was not something the city was bringing to the table at that time.
Mhm.
So, but again, talking to the city manager about this when I got it, absolutely. Talked to Matt. We already have the retirement article open. Perfect. Didn't need to be an MOU because we're already in open negotiations.
Mhm.
So we're there. We want to do something. We just got to clean this language up that's acceptable to both parties. And we do feel that we are mirroring, that I can find, based on what's been provided to me, FRS definitions.
And so the city's position is that an increase in their contribution rate of 1.01%, which is the number estimated $55,254, is too expensive for an officer death benefit in line of duty.
I didn't say that. I never said that. All I said earlier was that,
Isn't that why the language was changed?
no, sir, the language was changed because we felt the language provided was open-ended. There is no question that whether, if this comes back and it's still $49,000, I do not feel that the city would say no, absolutely not.
Then why limit who the beneficiary can be to just spouse as opposed to just designated beneficiary?
As
Our
stated,
understanding was that was because of concerns about money and the cost of it.
no, sir. I've never said one word at all about,
And I must have misheard because I heard 55,000 is too expensive.
I never said that.
51.
We're just here today to limit the words
Yeah.
and
But then, but
get into the definition,
by-
and we're happy to consider what y'all.
But by limiting the words,
And
we're
without
trying to
limiting-
limit the benefit, which is limiting the cost to the city.
Yeah, without limiting the words, it's been estimated it's 55,000.
Do you have, like, we're happy to look at a proposal for the definition.
Yes.
But,
have it.
okay, the one from the pension board was for designated beneficiary, correct? Wasn't that their
Yes.
recommendation?
Yes.
And that
Yes.
was what they did
So
the study on.
If money's not a concern right now, why was it changed to just read as spouse and not just designated beneficiary?
Stated again, we want to mirror, the city would like to mirror the FRS definitions of line of duty and beneficiary and surviving beneficiary, child.
Sure, and I get that, and that's fine to some extent. Obviously, our concern is what I stated already. The city's previously been fine with all the way up until now that you designated beneficiary. The study, which when we do these studies, that Chad Little always says, it's about the worst case scenarios, the most expensive case scenario. So, well, if I'm looking at that, and he's provided that, well, he's got to have the same thinking of, well, what if they designate their 1-year-old? Okay, well, it's his study. He did the numbers, so he's smarter than I am, so he should know he's planned for that. If I designated a 1-year-old I have, well, he says all the time, I go with the max cost, the max worst case scenario against the city. So he must have provided that cost estimate with this idea that it could be a 49-year-old married person. It could be them that designated their 10-year-old. It could be designated their 80-year-old mom. I don't know, but he's doing these impact studies by worst case scenario. So I would have assumed he presented it in a way that, hey, this is the worst case scenario for every single officer we have. If they all designate the worst case, most expensive scenario, that's your operating cost. So 55,000. So by changing this language, the intention of changing this language is to reduce the possibility of that benefit being paid out, which is to reduce the operating cost. So I'm not saying, so I guess it's not putting words in your mouth of saying that you're outright saying it's, but the intention of moving this around is to have less possibility of a payout, which means it's going to cost you less. So 55,000 is not obviously what the city wants to do, because here we are. If the city wanted to do this, you would have slid me the one from the pension board and be like, this is what we have from the pension board. Do you guys accept this language? And we could say yes and go from there. But by changing this word around, we're showing, without saying it, that you do want to save money on this. Because the intent is to save money. 55,000 is apparently too much. So we change the words around. I mean, it is. I mean, there's no other way to, I mean, I'm a very simple-minded person, but there's no other way to construe wording this around. I presented you what my immediate findings are as a borderline college dropout. And I can see there's an intention behind this is to reduce costs.
So I think at this time, I believe it'd be warranted to take a 5-minute break on both parties' side here, and you can discuss where you want. We'll discuss where we want, because right now I don't feel we're progressing any. We're just both rehashing, the same standards or opinions. So again, we want to move forward. This was not done against any one of the two of you or anyone sitting out there. So we'll take a 5-minute break. I'll stop the recording.
Sure.